Alex Vanover, DRL World Champion. What more needs to be said?
Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to welcome, for the third time, the three-peat, the only person who has been on the show 3 times, Alex Vanover. How you doing, Alex?
I'm doing great, Michael. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, man. I'm doing well. It's exciting to talk to you. I think there's been a little bit of news. So let's cut right to it. Let's talk about DRL. Are you the champion?
I am the DRL World 2019 Alliance World Champion. It is actually, man, it's still, I'm pinching myself about it all the time, really.
That is awesome.
It's happened, man. I just got my trophy as well, which I'll send you photos of. It's crazy, man. Everything's happening so fast, and it's been a dream come true for me.
That's amazing. So, I have not seen any of the final races yet. But talk me through how does it feel? Is it surreal, or is it just expected, or?
I figured before the end of the season, we talked about this before DRL during the season and everything, that I was pretty confident I'd become world champion. I knew I'd work harder than any of these guys, and that I wanted it really bad. So I always thought that before, even the night of the final race where I'm I'm going to win this, I'm going to be the world champion. I just knew it. I was expecting it, but then when it actually happened, it was so surreal, because all of a sudden, when something big in your life happens that you've been looking forward to for so long, it's such a, and this is one of the top 3 best things that's ever happened in my life, really.
Right.
And best in drone racing. There's just nothing that comes on the same level as it, especially in the whole sport of drone racing. So it's, I don't know. It's a hard question to answer, because I'm still living it,
right.
moment to moment. But even though it's happened now I've known it for a while now. But I'm just enjoying it. It's a real blessing. It's a real honor. I work super hard. So in one way, I kind of expected it to happen, but moreover, it's a great feeling. It's great to be the world champion.
When we talked last, you told me that it had been a lot harder than you expected, and we talked a lot about the practice that you put in. Is that what put you over the edge, do you think?
It's a good question. I definitely think so, but I wouldn't say necessarily that it was the practice itself that put me over the edge over the rest of my competitors. I think at the end of the day, it was just my dedication level was on another level compared to these guys. I really don't want to take anything away from these guys, because as I said early on in the season when we talked last, I said, it's a lot harder. These guys are all dedicating all their time. That's why you don't see these guys focusing on multi-GP or any of the other leagues. It's all about DRL. But I still feel at the end of the day, I just wanted it a bit more, and I was willing to put in that extra work. And I'm also lucky. Most of these guys work day jobs, whether it's in the drone industry or otherwise.
Yeah.
And I was able to sit basically at home and fly, literally running from my battery charger to my quads, right, and just keep flying. So I think that helped a lot, but I think just my dedication when it came to that final golden heat where I knew I could win the world championship if I won, I think everything had just led to that moment, and all the pieces of the puzzle finally came together.
So I want to touch on that dedication in just a second, but before we get to that, what were the nerves like going into that last heat?
Extremely nerve-wracking. So you haven't seen it yet, but in level 6, it was the race after level 5, which level 5 was the live race we did. And level 5 was my worst performance of the season. I did 4th, which I get. I'm pretty proud to say that was my worst performance. But at the same time, we knew that the final races we'd be doing for the season to, win the championship, that track was not my style. It was an oval style track where lines were critical, and I was getting passed by pretty much everyone, and it didn't make sense to me how the way I was taking turns after I'd literally been practicing harder than anyone else, how it wasn't paying off. And I remember the night after level 5, I went back feeling sick to my hotel. I had people telling me, well, even if you don't become the world champion this year, Alex, you'll still be rookie of the year. And it was actually those comments that kind of gave me that motivation and everything that final night. But in that final race, going up to it, I knew it was anyone's game. I was flying better than I was in level 5, but I was, it was kind of a roll the dice, to be honest, especially between Gab 707 and I. But going into that golden heat, I was really nervous, but it was more focus and just adrenaline the moment that race actually kicked in. Like, I remember looking at Gab right before the heat. I never look at my opponents, and I just remember looking at him, and there was no words really said or anything. It was just, I could see it in his eyes that he was really nervous, because he knew if I won this, it was done. Like, it was done, and he's been second so many times in a row now.
You'd mentioned
and I kind of thought to myself, I'm like, you know what? I might be under a lot of pressure right now, but he's got to be under the same pressure, if not the more pressure, because everyone else who's on the golden heat is also counting on him to make it happen right now.
Mm-hmm.
And that was just, in drone racing, you have your good days and your bad days, and I was on a good day, like my best day of racing ever. And the moment that race kicked in, I was nervous. Gab crashed immediately. Which in DRL we don't have spotters, but there was three of us. It was Flexi, Gab, and I. And when I heard the crash, I just thought it was Flexi. I was pretty sure it was Flexi. But Gab was sitting next to me, and there's a very distinct click that
when you
the
set your controller down.
When you set your controller down. And I was about halfway through the first lap when I heard that next to me, and I just started shaking, like, oh my gosh, the person who could beat me the most realistically, like, crashed. And then immediately Flexi crashes. And but he's staying in the air, but he's crashing. So for the first time in my entire DRL career, I pull the power back, and I'm like, just don't crash. Just don't crash. Just don't, because you have to finish. Even if Flexi crashes, I still have to finish to get awarded points. Yeah. And we're on a stage, and you have all the photographers there. They know what's happening, especially when I'm coming around for that final turn. And everyone just storms over to where I'm sitting, right? And it was like vibrating the stage like this, and I almost wanted to be like, stop, just like let me finish the race first. But I was shaking so bad I could barely hold the radio. I think when I went into the finish gate, my hands were already off the radio. I was like, because it just happened. It was. I wasn't as nervous before the race as I was during the race itself, which is usually the other way around. So it was crazy.
I can. It's funny. I do. I've done some public speaking before, and I don't ever get nervous during, before public speaking. When I go back and watch it, that's when I get nervous, and like the nerves just overwhelm you, and it's like, oh my God, how can I do this? Not that that's the same level as competing in a world-class sport, but what Sean Taylor said something, so I'm gonna dip into my nationals topic for just a second.
Go for it.
Sean Taylor, Night Fury, for those that know him by that name, him and there was one other gentleman. They were kind of the old guard in the final 16, and
Johnny Fly,
that's who it was. Thank you. I would have felt terrible.
You said old, and I was just like, oh, I'm gonna. Old
here is relative, because they're both at least a decade younger than me. Sean, they both were just so gracious and so awesome in their exit interviews. But Sean said something that I found interesting, and you kind of touched on it in talking about your preparation. There's been this. I think there's this belief that and I don't want to call y'all kids, because you're not kids, right? Mm-hmm. Like you're young men at the very least, and if not, full blown grown men. Right. That the reason y'all are winning, you and Evan and Thomas Bitmata and all the younger folks, the reason that you're winning is because naturally, due to biology, you guys have faster reaction times. And Sean kind of pointed out, it wasn't an excuse, but he said, these younger guys have the time to put in pack after pack after pack. And when you're older, and like you said, you have a day job, some of them have families, there's just not that same opportunity to put in the number of packs that the younger folks are putting in. Do you think it is the practice, or do you think it's the biology that makes the difference, or is it a combination of both?
That's a really good question. I've thought about that recently because, after nationals, I was kind of chatting with Evan. Evan and I are really getting along these days, which is awesome. There's that rivalry as competitors, but as friends, we're getting along. Mm-hmm. And he doesn't fly as much as people think he does. He practices almost every day, especially before a big race. We all are practicing as much as we can, but realistically, he's probably flying only 20, 30 batteries a day, and he's spending, good 2 hours on a simulator, which I'm just now starting to use the simulator as well. And doing that is just keeping his sticks sharp, his skills sharp, because honestly, I think flying a lot does make a big difference, and I think you can start to find yourself going faster and faster. But if you fly the same track 100 times, you're never going to fly that same track 100 times in a big race, right? In nationals, we flew like 20 batteries before the finals. So, you know, it's one thing if you're working on some areas that you're difficult on, but as far as back to the question, you know, I think practice at the end of the day is going to be more important. And you see this especially in DRL, where I think fast reflexes are a bigger thing in multi-GP racing, where the quads are much faster. But I think when you start to do spec racing, or even DRL simulator, you know, where we have the Racer 4 preset, so it's a lot slower than like Velocidrone is. Right. You'll find that a lot of older pilots, has nothing to do with reflexes. It's just practice. And you see that in DRL. It's spec class, and like in Phoenix, in those last few levels at the end of the season, all the competitions, you know, getting better and better, and the gap between first and sixth is like a second, right? There's just, it's really good. So I think it depends. I think he's not entirely right or wrong. I think in one way, you know, practice does make a big impact, and the more you practice, the better you're going to be. But there's no exact number. I've always said I try and fly 100 batteries a day. You know, maybe Evan only needs 20 batteries a day, and I need 100 batteries to get the same amount of improvement. I think at the end of the day, it's not about how much you can practice. It's how good a quality practice you're getting while you're practicing. I think most people don't practice the right way.
So that leads me to a good question, which is, like, at the level that you're at, what does improvement look like?
Man, that's a good question. I mean, of course, going faster, right? But I mean, it's weird because I go out here and practice for nationals, and I feel like I'm on another level, and then I get into a final race with Evan, and then we're both on this, like, we're both thinking to ourselves, oh my gosh, we never knew that our quads could go this fast. So as far as improvement, it's getting tougher and tougher these days, because we're all everyone's improving stick skill wise, like we're all getting faster. But for me at least, and I think Evan's in the same boat a little bit, is how do we prepare ourselves for when we're in those final races where we are on another level? Like, how do you practice that without killing 10 quads in an hour? And you know, I think improvement's going to be a lot slower in that realm, but I think at the same time with the technology improving and parts getting cheaper and everything like that, I think we're going to see people just getting faster and faster and faster as we go. But that actual experience you get when you're racing in a final race, like at multi-GP championships, that's going to be something you're only going to get either at that race, or what I'm going to really get into are these simulator races, because you can hit reset. It's the best thing about it, right? But you still get that experience. I was just, before our interview, we talked about it, I was just racing Evan's time on the simulator and melting my thumbs off for 2 hours. But that was great, and that's the kind of practice I wish I could get more of, because you're pushing yourself past another level.
And you know, that actually, I think we'll probably close out this topic with this question. Do you think you could ever get to the point where you could practice enough of the pressure that you get at a national final or a DRL final such that you would get used to it?
Absolutely. I think there is definitely a way. In multi-GP, I'm going to have to figure that way out. But in DRL, I kind of figured that out this season. In DRL, for me, what I had learned in levels 1 through 4, the first half of our season, was that I had the skills. I just needed to be, in the back of my mind, I needed to know that I had the skills over the rest of these guys, or at least on the same level. Like, I could win. It wasn't that I was at any disadvantage or anything. So really, in DRL, it was important for me to practice as much as I could. So when I got into that golden heat for the World Championship, in the back of my mind, it's not a question of, can I do this? It's, I know I can do this, and that puts me in that mental stage that I need to be in. With multi-GP, you think it would be the same thing, but it's like we're racing on just a whole nother level. With the spec quad, you're going the same speed pretty much every time. Yeah. You can find different lines, but you're not going Mach 12.
Right.
With a multi-GP race, you feel like you're going Mach 12 through these gates. And I don't know. I'm going to have to leave part of that question unanswered and figure it out over the next few months. That's the beautiful thing about not having big races for a while, is getting to sit back, reflect on these things, and keep practicing.
So I actually lied. There's one more question I want to ask you about DRL, and this one's more of a personal question. So I think it was the end of level 3, because you won level 3, right?
Yeah, level 3.
Okay, so the end of level 3, that your exit interview, they followed you on camera, and you kissed your hand, pointed up, and said, "This one's for you, Dad." What was that about?
So a lot of people don't know that my dad was a world champion billiards player, like pool.
Mm-hmm.
And growing up, my dad passed away a few years ago in 2017. Okay. He passed away when I was 17. He was 84 years old.
Oh, wow.
He was, right? He lived a really good life.
Yeah.
He passed away with Alzheimer's. But growing up, we had a pool table in the middle, the smack dab middle of our house. Mm-hmm. And my earliest memories I can think back to were learning how to play pool or watching him play pool. I actually had a train set underneath the pool table. So, like, he'd be playing pool. He had international people come in because he was the king of 9-ball. He really was. Mm-hmm. And then one day, after 10 years of being literally undefeated, he just finally said, nope, I'm going to retire from it so I can have a family. Mm-hmm. For me, my dad was the reason I pretty much ever got into RC flying. So we would go to the field across the street. We'd fly together. When I crashed, he'd help pick up the pieces. We'd walk back. He was always there, even when I got into FPV. And when he passed, the year that he passed away, I had been talking for 2 years at that point about being on DRL. And it was in 2017. I'm like, listen, I'm going to go to the Multi-GP Championship this year. Hopefully I can qualify. And he always told me, set the bar higher than everyone else, like what he did in 9-ball. Basically scare everyone else, and don't just do what everyone else is doing. Do it better, and be the best at whatever you do. And so I told him, I said that when we watched DRL, I'm like, I'm going to be a world champion at that. And he said that I could do it. So for me, this season's been for him. Just like he's a multiple-time world champion, this is my dream, is to be a multi-world champion at Drone Racing League. Or in any type of drone racing, really. All the belts, right? But this is for him, and drone racing's really hard. It. It's a very random sport still. I mean, you can go out there like I did in level 4, same track as level 3 that I had won. I'm way ahead, and I'm like, I knew that if I won that level, the season was pretty much guaranteed for me, and I just made the dumbest mistake ever. So it's a very unforgiving sport, but I always feel like my dad's on my side, especially in these important races. And it's just, I'm doing this for him. Plain and simple. Doing this for him. And, that was what made becoming the world champion so emotional to me. Is this something I've wanted to do for my entire life?
Is that where your drive comes from?
Yeah, I would say so. I think my drive to work harder than everyone else, whether that's win or lose, comes from my dad's work ethic. I would watch him set up the billiard balls in certain orders. He would rehearse situations that he would be in. He was so much better at that than anyone else. He would be ready for any situation that was put in front of him. He knew exactly where he needed to put that cue in order to make that corner shot, those impossible looking shots. And I've tried, and drone racing is still an early sport, to figure those things out. But in DRL this year, I tried to put myself in every situation I could be. I brought Nub and Fluxy up to Wisconsin. They came rather to Wisconsin to come train. We all trained together, and I prepared for those situations where I'm behind people. You have to tell yourself to fly smooth, and then trained as much as I could, push myself beyond my limits, prepared myself for when I got to that golden heat for the world championship.
Yeah. Well, congratulations. It sounds like you did your dad proud, and it sounds like you've accomplished a goal, a life goal at 19?
19, youngest DRL champion to date. So it's man.
I mean,
it's going to take me a long time for it to sink in. I hope it doesn't. I like it not sinking in because I feel like I can just enjoy it and keep pushing hard and not get complacent with it.
Congratulations, man.
As a father, there is nothing better that I could give to my children than to be better and do better than I am and have been. Alex took what he saw his father do and turned it into the DRL World Championship. I think that's a testament to Alex's dad, and I think it's a testament to Alex. It took a lot of dedication, a lot of hard work, and a lot of drive to get to where he is. Congratulations, Alex. You absolutely earned it, and I'm ecstatic to see you there. Good job, buddy. I would like to thank not only my patrons, but also all of you that chimed in on my year in review video. I am overwhelmed and blessed by the reception that I got from just posting that up. You guys made me feel great. I don't know what else to say. Thank you. Thank you so much for everything that you've done, for watching, for commenting, and doing all the stuff that you've done. It ended this year in a much better note than I thought it would. So thank you. You can find all the links in the description below. Like, subscribe, comment, do all that stuff. I'll see y'all in the next one.